So I can remember it like it was yesterday. There were 5 of us working in the club that night. We're talking about a club with about 700 member capacity. And it was a great night. Everything was going really well. The music was thumping, people on the dance floor having a great time. And then suddenly, chaos. I don't know where the fight initially kicked off, but it just seemed to spread like wildfire. As it turned out, I think there were 2 fairly sort of big groups that had got in dribs and drabs, mostly males. And yeah, it just went from bad to worse. We were trying to pull people off of each other, and then you do that, you'd pull somebody off of somebody, and you'd look around and somebody else is tangled up having a fight. And it just, it was the first time, probably the only time in my time as a doorman, as a bouncer, that I felt like we'd lost control of the situation. And as we were trying to get people out of the club, ejecting people and whatnot, it got to the point where someone pulled a gun outside the club. So one of the doormen has pulled the shutters down, the sort of fire shutters, to keep them out and to keep the rest of the club in, so they weren't going out there and obviously getting caught up in anything. Self-preservation really amongst us and the remaining sort of club members until the police turned up, which was about an hour later. So yeah, it was, I'd felt obviously fear before working the doors. When you work in a nightclub, you get used to those moments of fear where things are going to go a bit wonky, but you've got each other's backs. You're in a team and you're working together, and sometimes you're not in a team. I've done nights where I've sort of been on my own, but you can have those moments of fear, and that's normal, right? You kind of got to get used to that when you're in those sort of unpredictable situations. But that was the one night where it went beyond that. It was more a sense of hopelessness really, and a bit of despair, if I'm honest. It was like, shit, yeah, we've lost control here. It's going off everywhere, and it's down to us to try and sort it out, which is what we did in the best way we could at the time with the numbers that we had. Close the doors, keep the nutters outside, and that's how we thought we'd best handle it at the time. But everybody felt shit afterwards. There wasn't a good feeling that night. Some nights you'd have a great night, and it was all good. It was always a good feeling, but that night was a bad feeling. But the next night we regrouped and we got our heads together, and there was a few other people join us from other clubs, just as a bit of sort of extra support, if you like, just in case there was any comeback from what had happened the night before, which thankfully there wasn't. It was a smooth night, things went well, and there were no major issues or altercations. But that second night, that Saturday night after the incident, the big fight the night before, the transformation was incredible, really. Like the morale and the camaraderie amongst us. We felt like we could have taken on anything because we'd had some time to get our heads together and regroup and talk about what we were going to do, etc. So yeah, the difference a day can make. I'm saying this because recently I've felt similar despair and sense of hopelessness coming to the end of a big project I've been working on with a client that's been running for several months, and then suddenly realising, like in the space of a couple of days, that things are going to slow right down very quickly. And that can be like a horrible feeling. That can feel like you're staring into the void. It's like, shit, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to pay the mortgage, support my family? And it's not a good feeling, right, to be in that situation. But feel the fear, embrace it, give yourself some time, wallow in it if you have to for a bit. You can't deny these feelings. We all feel fear of different things in different ways, and it's good that people are talking about anxiety more these days and stuff like that. It's important, and we talk about this stuff. But if you can, quite quickly regroup, get your head together and decide what the next step's going to be. And that might be reaching out to former clients and colleagues, or people you've worked with before. Drop them an email or a quick phone call or a text or whatever it takes. But just know that it's going to be okay. We're in harsh times right now with the rise of AI, and as illustrators and designers, it's getting harder and harder for us, right? But those human connections, that's what's going to keep us working. Those relationships, that's what it's all about. Nurture those. This is where it's going to be so important going forward. Humans want to connect with other humans, right? They want to buy from other humans. Yeah, AI can do some amazing stuff. It can do an illustration far better and far quicker than I can. Say it's a fantasy illustration for a book cover or whatever. and I'll use AI as inspiration. You know, that could be my starting point, not always, but quite often if I'm doing a book cover design, it will be, I'll go on to Midjourney and I'll come up with some ideas like around the image that I'm going to produce. I'll never use any AI images in my piece, obviously, but it can be a good starting point in order to just get, whether it's a color palette or some ideas down for your own work. I very much think we should be using it as a tool. We need to master AI. We need to get our heads around it, because it's better the devil you know, right? We can't just bury our heads in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist or hope that it goes away, because it's certainly not going away. So yeah, it all comes down to human connection, and that's where we can knock it out of the park. That's something AI can't replicate. So if you're in a period where you're feeling lost and you're despairing right now, where's the next job coming from? Don't panic, okay? Just regroup, but always prepare for the unexpected, even while things are going really well. This is advice to myself, let alone anyone else, because I've been guilty of resting on my laurels in the past. And before you know it, there's a curveball, right? The job you've been working on, it's been going so well for a while, is suddenly coming to an end, and you've got to move quick to find where the next work might be coming in from. But if you do have those periods where there is a lull, there is a dip, use that time for your own projects, personal projects, updating your portfolio, whatever it might be. Take advantage of those downtimes. I've been quite grateful at times for a couple of days off here and there, whatever. So yeah, I hope that helps. If you're feeling a sense of despair or loss or sort of hopelessness at the moment around your work situation, I hope this video can help, and feel free to reach out to me. There's a Calendly link in the description if you want to have a 30-minute chat, a free chat about anything to do with this. It may be this subject, or or on the technical side of things in terms of cover design or whatever it might be. Feel free to hit me up. I'm more than happy to chat, because just like we were that night we were working at the club, the following night after the big fight, we realised, we're stronger together. The same goes for us freelancers and artists and designers and illustrators. If we can come together and support each other through the shit times and the rough moments, the rough patches, then we're going to feel a lot stronger for it. So don't ever feel isolated. There's always someone you can reach out to and talk to about this stuff if you're having a rough time of it at the moment in terms of finding work. I've been there. Last year, like I say, not a good year. And I keep having flashbacks about, what if that was to happen again, and it might. But we need to arm ourselves with knowledge and do the best we can to prevent those situations happening in the first place. And yeah, it's tough. It's going to get tougher as time goes on, but if we can adapt and pivot and be versatile, then we'll survive. I hope you've enjoyed this video and look forward to seeing you in the next one.